not supposed to hear all that. Yeah, we got that.
Now you sit at home
Oh,
and you're on a Zoom call, not what, or Teams call or whatever. And then you've got another one of those windows open where you're chatting with people. Oh, I don't know, outside
blinking,
conversation.
blinking.
Yeah, your point is. That's what you
You
do.
leave there, you're texting, so you don't necessarily, you don't hear you talk, say something you shouldn't say. When you forgot
This
to
is
check
gonna
and make
go
sure
over
that
here.
symbol is properly checked.
Oops.
Got it. Oh, come on. Quit with the screen blinking already. Okay. Lord have mercy. How many got it's do I need to have? Okay, so yeah, this, put this in front for a minute. Yeah, that is Tennessee. And see that up there? That's Pickett right there.
Yeah.
Hi, Pickett. This is a bunch of bottomland Tennessee River farming land down
Yeah,
there.
yeah, I think Waynesboro is somewhere close.
Is that dark skies?
Yeah.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or undark skies as the case might be, but yeah.
And if you're willing, there's some area in northern Mississippi
Yeah,
that's
that's
dark.
where the club out there goes, is to northern. Actually, that corner of Missouri, you go up there, the Mark Twain National Forest is actually quite nice. All right, so then the next fun thing is to see if we can do this. So, and I'm assuming people can hear me. Can any of you guys on Zoom say like hi or
I hear you, Theo.
hey? That's always good. So we have sound. Let me see if I can do the whole, I want to share my screen. Yeah, the others, I had other people to take care of, so I didn't have to worry about that. Of course, what I really want to share is the PowerPoint. So maybe what I need to do is drag this. Hold on. Drag this bad boy here. Then do this slideshow. Let's see if this will work. From beginning. No other better place. Okay. That looks pretty good. I hate stuff that goes full screen without asking permission, but all right. All right, that's at least pretty good. Yeah, it turns out I'm a lay delegate for the United Methodist Church for my local church, so I got to go to annual conference today. Well, actually, since Monday. But it was in Memphis this year because we united the Tennessee and the Western Kentucky conferences into the thoughtfully named Tennessee Western Kentucky Conference. I suggested a better name, but they did not take my suggestions on.
Just don't worry, the rest of you.
Yeah, we're probably not going to go over that far. The East Tennessee is part of the Holston Conference, so we don't even talk to those people. But anyway, it was in Memphis this year, so I did it virtually, which was fine. It is always fun. They have great singing, great preaching, and it's a lot of fun to actually be there. But yeah, Memphis, it's a long way away. Anyway. All right, I think I actually have things somewhat in order here. So yeah, I should get good at this after a while. All right. Well, let's see how many people are on the Zoom call.
I'm here.
Well, I don't count. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 on Zoom right now, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 me. So we're pretty even tonight. That's kind of fun. There must be a lot of other fun things going on tonight. That's all I can say.
Well, I'm here and I'm late, but I'm here.
So I probably could make this. BSAS is fine. Yeah. Oh, select. Let me just. I need to do this right. Cancel. There we go. All right. All right, so hopefully you're seeing, are you seeing my screen?
I can't.
Maybe I did need to do that.
Not yet, Theo.
Okay, so I still have to pick
I've just got our logo here. I haven't got your picture.
here. More screen blinking and
Let's see.
someday maybe.
Okay, I've got a banner here.
There you go.
All right, good. Please move. Yeah, well, you just might not get that. I hate those. Okay. Yeah, I get why it doesn't want to. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing the slide, right?
If it has a telescope and a starry thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've,
See the welcome page, Theo.
Yep, okay, good. All right, well, welcome to the meeting tonight, June the 21st. Happy Solstice Day. Yay, we didn't really see much sun today, right? But okay, that's still fine. And this way, right? There we go. So we'll run through our regular business. Hopefully people do actually read the minutes in the eclipse. I'm not real good at it, but I do try to get caught up periodically, but so is there a motion to accept the minutes as published in the eclipse? There we go.
Motion to accept.
Okay, that we'll take that as a first and second, yeah.
second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Next, I will let you guys know that we do still have a little bit of money. And so only thing we paid out for this last month was renewed our mailbox. We did get a refund for the out of power night here at the Girl Scouts, so that was nice. And then later this week, I'm going to pay the Astronomical League dues, which roughly is $5 a member. And so Keith went through, pruned the membership down, and then I send them a list at the same time so that they have, you know, everybody's address to send the reflector to and all that good stuff. So that's really all there is. The total balance is $10,458.04. Since we were getting a little bit low, I think, on checks, although I did find some more when I went through and cleaned up some of the files of your, but anyway, I got some new checks that actually say Truist Bank on them now. So now we're caught up with what bank we're at. It'd be nice if banks would not change their name faster than you can use up their checks, right? It's not a lot of people here, but how many would be interested in doing a night? I probably have a slide for this later, but I don't think Pickett's doing anything organized this year. And I was going to call them up tomorrow and ask how much would they charge us, and can we just rent out the group camp for a weekend? Because I actually think it's not a lot of money. Even their regular charge is, you know, just for normal people that rent it out for whatever. And we could have a weekend where we'd have the group camp. We could invite other clubs, you know, around the state and just have, you know, a nice weekend of astronomy and maybe clear skies. And, you know, so be thinking, I mean, in August, we could do, but I think that's too soon. So it'd probably be September, and we try to hit the new moon. So, you know, third week or so in September, whenever that would fall. But I might look into that and then pass that around, you know, through the different mailing lists. But be thinking about that. If it would be fun to go up. You know, wherever I go, I take the van and I just camp on the field if it's any kind of clouds, no clouds at all, because I'm going to run the telescope all night long or sit in the chair with binoculars. You can do a fair part of the Messier Marathon with binoculars, and especially late summer when you've still got all that, you know, all those globular clusters and all that good stuff. So it's good fun.
I, for one, like it.
Yeah,
Sounds fun.
I think it would be fun. Is Keith online? I do not hear. But he did send an updated list, and I think we're at, when we pruned off all the people that haven't paid dues, inside of 2 or 3 years, I think it's at 178 members or something like that.
Wow.
So it's still a lot. It's pretty good, and we're happy for that. There is still loaner equipment. I need to poke a few people to see if they want to, if they're done using the stuff, not because I really want it back in my garage, but just to touch base with them really. And if you're using some equipment, let us know how it's going, or if you're still using it, or if you want to send it back to some garage. Or make us an offer for it, right? If you really like it, that's not a bad thought. There may be some more loaner equipment depending on, so hopefully some people saw the email I sent around earlier this week. On Monday, I got an email from Oceanside Pacific and Telescope where they said, "Hi, valued customer, we're going out of business and everything is selling tomorrow at auction."
Wow.
Like, wow, thanks for the, long lead heads up. I went and looked, it was 530 or so lots of stuff because, the auction house is not going to sell one thing. That would take them way too long. Hey, so they didn't do that. So there were some interesting bundles. You could have bought 120 or so laser pointers. Right, for everybody on your guest list. But so I passed that over to my significant other and said, peruse the list, see if there's anything we can't live without that's going to go, because it was an auction, so you had to put in a bid. And unlike eBay, where you can kind of lay low and put that bid of yours in the last 30 seconds, and so nobody else can even bother to get past you. Yeah, they didn't allow none of that. Some people got involved in a bidding war at the end on all we could tell is it was a carbon fiber tube. And the rule was for this auction house that if you placed a bid, then 5 minutes had to elapse to let somebody else bid more. Well, they dragged it out by like 2 hours of 5-minute increments and ran the price up on that item to long past where we kind of thought they should have, but that's not my problem. But we did actually win 2 lots. One was a camera. And again, you set your price and just, whatever. And so the price was good for what it is. It's called an obsolete camera because nobody's using CCDs anymore. But it was one of the best CCDs made, real nice, big chip, lots of pixels. Anyway, it should be good. The other thing we bid on was the table full of returns. All kinds of equipment. Okay, so this is where I'm going, during the pandemic, a lot of people went out and bought a lot of stuff and didn't know how to use it, wouldn't read the instructions, whatever. Lots of user error. And if you've ever helped somebody start a party, that's kind of 90% of most of the problems. So anyway, it was a lot of fun stuff. And we said, all right, so we'll set a price on some of it being good anyway. And so we got the table of returns. So whenever that gets here, it's going to be like Christmas. What do we got? Turn it on, see how it works. Some of it you can't understand how it wouldn't work, right? There's a cute little 7-inch Mac CAS. How does that not work? I mean, it's again, unless they broke the mirror, that's a telescope. So anyway, there is a mount. There's a couple, I think 2 cameras in the lot, and a couple of off-axis guiders. And I don't know how many off-axis guiders you need, but I don't need. I think we've got 3 now. So those may come maybe to the table at the Christmas dinner, who knows? But anyway, it'll be fun. So I wish I kind of had, they did not give out a list of who won what, because it would have been kind of fun to see who bid on their stuff. And I'm sure some of it was, Woodland Hills Telescope and Orion Telescopes. I'm sure they were, picking up some stuff. But anyway, it's really sad. The backstory there is the gentle person who currently owned it had been a member here.
Huh.
And at some point in time moved out to California with his, I think, wife, and bought OPT. And they're in different places now, so there may have been an issue there, but in any case, they, The company went bankrupt, so that's kind of sad. And that's one less supplier that we have to buy from too, so anyway. Yep. The next star party is Saturday night at Bowie, but wait, there's more. So I got a text from somebody that said, did you know that Shelby Bottoms thinks that we're also doing one at Cornelia Fort? I go, So anyway, I talked back and forth with Christy there, and we think what happened is back when we were trying to pick dates, that was an either or choice. And we never narrowed it down to, we're doing May, so we're not doing June. So they just had it on their schedule. I said, okay, so a lot of the people do live kind of out, and I think Bowie will have enough telescopes. So if me and Roy and a guy down the street that sometimes comes, we live on that side of town. If we show up down there, that'll be good. Right. And that's why it was confusing. But originally when we were talking to him, it was either May or June would be fine. And they just wrote down May and June. Yeah. So we'll see what happens, but provided it's clear, you can choose where you want to be. You can squirrel into the deep bowels of East Nashville, or
That's on Saturday the 24th.
right.
Or that night. Yeah.
So after that, we're actually out at Bowie for 2 weekends, and again, we've got Bowie again on, right? So we're tomorrow, Saturday night, and in July as well. That just happened because of where other people wanted theirs, and then we're back at Edwin Warner in August. So yeah, that makes, and yeah, there's Clear Sky Clock, our friend. They're thinking it might be clear on Saturday, but it's only Wednesday.
Oh, I hope so.
One of the fun things, they do smoke forecasts now. Oh boy,
Oh, yeah.
times are fun. Whoops. Yeah, that's right. Close the dome. And of course, if you need any decoration in your observatory and or dining room or whatever, we've got lovely posters still for sale. We might have to have a Christmas sale on these. See what happens. We can be found on Facebook. The Nerd Night people said, hey, anybody, you guys might be interested in this, so I put that up. It's some kind of a group that periodically they meet at, this was at the Black Abbey Brewing Company, have some beer, some food, and some random science-y topic. So they found somebody to talk about how we're gonna inhabit the moon. I hope not. But so anyway, that's another interesting local group. If you feel so moved, they're cheerful to find speakers just like we are, so that would be fun. Of course, we're also on Twitter. How many of you knew that we in the generic sense, like we're humans, not we in the United States, are sending a mission to Mercury again? And this is the Europeans. They call it Bepi Colombo, and it flew by Mercury at only 150 kilometers yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah, that's shaving it, right? That's a flyby intended to slow it down a little bit. It will not get to orbit around Mercury for the next 2 years. Patience is your biggest virtue in these planetary missions. We're all doing them as cheaply and with no fuel as we can, and so you're doing all this orbital finagling to burn off speed. And Mercury is actually hard because it's a fine line between being in orbit at Mercury and falling into the sun. So, and they're down at the bottom of the frame. You can see Mercury under the arm of the spacecraft, and they did take some really nice close-ups when they went flying by. So that's cool.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. Cool.
We're thankful that member Steve Hughes has been doing some Instagramming for us. Yay. And people are welcome if you, again, feel moved to contribute to the Facebook page or the Twitter page. I can cheerfully make you a person who can do that because I go sometimes for a while and I just don't check. I'm not a social media person.
Really need to get out more.
I know, I just, and of course, we have the Google group for members where you can check up what's happening, start a conversation, ask who's going out to that lonely place on the Natchez Trace. That's a really good use for that. We actually did have a lot of people show up at Montgomery Bell last weekend. It was technical clear, but we had, again, a lot of smoke that day and it was dewed up. I mean, everything was soaking wet when we came home.
Is there any other inquiries from the place out of the ridge?
Oh,
Cow pasture.
you know, I need to drive by there just to see what's
Oh, it
there.
looks nice, man. They put up
Okay.
some swing sets and a set of slides and
Stuff,
stuff like that, but it's still from cow pasture.
yeah.
I mean, it's way beyond the.
Someday maybe. I think we have them on the list. I can't remember what mine. So I need to drive out there. I've never been out there. Night Sky Network is what we use to keep up with our membership. So if your address changes, please change it here. It's helpful if I have to mail something out. That usually only happens with the Observer's Handbooks now, but anyway, it's helpful. And Night Sky Network also has some cool things, NASA's Night Sky Notes. So this month they were highlighting M55, really lovely globular cluster. You know, it's globular cluster season. So summertime is when there's a pile of them in the sky and they're all very cool. And they're kind of, even though they kind of look all the same, they actually don't. Especially if you image them, you can start to see differences between them. And I can recognize M13 now, apart from somebody like, that's not M13, but I haven't memorized them all yet. And, you know, they have what's up in the sky, what you should be looking for on particular nights. So if we had a nice night, yeah, oh, look, there's a pretty young moon next to Venus and Mars. And we're not going to see that tonight. Oh, well. Other fun things that have happened. Did anybody end up going out on Saturday, May the 20th to Water Valley? No, I don't even remember what was going on. Cornelia Fort, I guess, was fairly well attended. I finally got a person estimate out of that, which was nice. Did they get the light turned off on the one outdoor shed there? No, okay. Okay. And then, yeah, you know. So then we were out at Montgomery Bell State Park with Chuck last weekend. Chuck brought his, you know, collection of stuff to put on in the shelter. And it's the park has been upgrading itself. That used to be you could not drive from the ballpark to the campground. Now you can. They put in some regular paths, so people are coming more from the campground over to what's going on. And the rangers kind of like, hey, there's this thing going on, you should come over. So there were a lot of people that did come over from the campground early on in the evening. So that was nice. Of course, a lot of kids, but it's fine. A couple of dogs too, one of which wanted to own Roy's Dob. So it was going to mark Roy's Dob as his personal telescope. Yeah, we were not happy about that, but
No.
This Saturday, June 17th, no, last Saturday was a private star party, and I have no actual recollection of what the weather was. It's been kind of, you know, patchy rain sometimes, some places, not my house. All right, so yeah, we're going to Bowie. There's Water Valley on the 15th. Next member meeting, which hopefully we will have an actual speaker for, which is something else we're going to talk about tonight. And then we're back at Bowie again in July. And if you want to come to the east side, we'll try and give a little bit of support. What the park is going to do, they're going to actually provide, they're going to have a range of doing activities. So they're going to have something, you know, of their own going on while we have a telescope or two. And I said, I hate to tell you, no, we're not going to come. We were wrong. You know, that was an incorrect reading of what we were doing. But and again, I live really, really close to, not really, really close, but a lot closer to Shelby than I do to. So I don't mind going down to that. But yeah, we talked about club retreat, astronomy weekend, because when the sun goes down, the Milky Way comes out up at Pickett. And you forget how darn pretty it is until you're there. So be thinking about that. You know, the last time with COVID, we couldn't get any catering or anything, and there were only a handful of us up there last year anyway. We just got some cold cuts for lunch. We just had some hamburgers to grill for dinner. It's actually the kitchen that goes with the group camp. You can feed a multitude from without even working hard. Or at least that's, you know, I used to feed 6 people every single day. So I can do 10 or 15 or 20 without working hard. When you have a griddle that's, you know, 3 foot by 2 foot and stuff like that, it's really pretty easy. So anyway, it's a nice place, good facility. The bathrooms were slightly upgraded. I don't think the bunkhouses really were. Bunkhouses are okay. The mattresses are just not the world's most comfortable. Bud will vouch for that. And I think they actually got the frames. I think they got them from the prison is where they came from. Maybe someday they'll get around to making that better. Coming up in the night sky, June 2nd, we had Mars and Messier 44. Venus has now gotten as far away from the sun as it's going to get and heading back. So lots of fun, you know, between Venus, the Beehive, Mars, the Moon, some nice little conjunctions going on. So we'll look forward to a few more in July. So the Beehive cluster, of course, should be a naked eye object. It is if you're in a properly dark place. It's not, way not here. It's very low in the western sky at the moment. But that there is what Mars looked like when it went through. It was smack dab in the middle of the Beehive. Wow. Sad picture because I didn't get the tracker out because I was in the middle of my street and so forth. But anyway. So yeah, the red guy is Mars and the other stuff is the Beehive cluster. That's just camera on tripod for as long as I could stand to make the track. Other random topics. We need some more board members. So we're going to be twisting arms. Whoops. And of course, you don't need to do anything at all, right? That's what you've always been told for any office you've ever been asked to serve for.
That's funny.
And I'll make you an offer you can't refuse.
That's the one I'm laughing at.
Yep. So you know, it's always, I think it's fun, you know, and we need
It is.
planning stuff, and to that, we need program ideas and people to go call. It's tedious. You have to call people. You have to ask, you know, find out when they're available. I do have one in mind. I don't know if Tom had anybody lined up yet for July. I hang out with a group in New Mexico online on their group just because they do fun stuff and we might move out there someday. One of their members is a retired military guy and he likes to play around with machining things. He's got a good shop. Well, for some reason, he was on an Air Force base looking at surplus stuff. It might have been for an auction. And he sees this pile of junk. And he looks at it and he says, that's a telescope, a really big one. And looking at the size of the motors, it was made to move really fast. And he looked at it and he decided most, if not all, the parts were there. So he bought the pile of junk, took it back to his place, and he's assembling this huge, fast slewing telescope. He's got it most of the way together. It's now functional. And I'm going to ask him if he would talk about that and show some pictures.
That would be interesting.
They were tracking satellites, you know, something
Wow.
you have to slew fast. But yeah, so, and the fun thing is, there's now some interest in a telescope like that. He said he's having inquiries from people who want to be able to slew too. Cosmic ray blast just went off somewhere. Do we have a telescope that we can say over there? So it might actually get used for science. But that's fun. The group also recently came into possession of a 41-inch telescope that was being decommissioned from Apache Point.
Oh, wow.
And there's some people that are highly motivated, and they have moved it now, and they're looking for a spot to put it permanently in the Magdalena / Dattel, which is, if you go find where the VLA is, a very large array of radio telescopes, those two towns bookend it. And it is dark. There's nothing there. And the low spots are 7,000 feet. So it's a really interesting place. So anyway, that's, well, we're looking for program ideas and anything but astrology. So I would also like to encourage new members, and hopefully maybe some of them will catch up with this later on the recording or on YouTube. First, yes, you can. You know, people that, oh, I don't know enough. I'm not an expert. Yeah, but you are. I mean, you're more of an expert than the little person who comes up and asks you.
I'm so intimidated. Honestly,
And people have so much fun looking through your binoculars because they're cool first. You know, yeah. And all you have to be is enthusiastic, really. People want, I mean, just seeing the moon blows people away. And your rock is great too. I need a rock like that. I don't have a good rock.
driveway,
Yeah,
they won't know.
you
Really,
know,
they won't.
they won't, but I, you know, I have a little bitty about 1-inch Canyon Diablo, and I've got some pepper specks that say they're from the moon. But they're not going to impress anybody. But anyway, I really think that if even new members, and you've had fun, right? You had a great time. Come on out. It's so much fun, especially kids enjoy it, but even adults, to get the chance to even have somebody with just the laser pointer, which you get out the green laser pointer and boom, everybody's awed right away anyway, right? Just to point out, look, there's the Big Dipper. Look, there's, well, some of the Little Dipper, you know, and just to point out what they can see.
And it's always fun when you show you the anchor, it takes you away.
I have only the regulation laser, and I am careful about the airplanes. Of course, kids want to play with them, and that's a definite no. But we have had members that had ones you had to put in a combination to fire up. I do not recommend that because, yeah, the FBI and nobody, those aren't necessary for pointing things out. They do look cool, though. I was about 50 yards away from somebody when they fired. Normally, you can't see the laser unless you're within just a small circle of the laser pointer. But I was a good 50 yards out. Zoom, there it goes. Of course, the ones they get out on the mountaintops for the adaptive optics are pretty good.
You send me after that mess with them and what happened when it started.
What happened? There was an attempt once to, and it was successful, where they got together. I don't know if it was a number of lasers or just a really bright one or what, but they agreed with the space station that the space station would look down at a given time and they were going to try to shine up, and they did see their light. So that was kind of fun.
That's pretty.
So anyway, let me stop sharing for a minute here. I'm going to bounce back out of Mr. PowerPoint.
Hey, Theo, this is Ron Ladd.
Hey, Ron.
If anybody's interested in coming out to the Water Valley Overlook there for the July thing, assuming the clouds cooperate, if there aren't too many people, or even if there are, if they're interested in coming over to my place, which is just one ridge over from the Water Valley Overlook, I can willing to host that too, that private star party.
All right. Is it okay if we post that to the Google group?
Sure.
Okay.
Best cookies and hot chocolates anywhere.
That's right.
That's what we had at the MSCA Marathon, coffee too. So yeah, that'll probably be available along with power in the bathroom.
I think the bathroom rate's really, really highly on my list.
Me too.
I just think that's an important thing to have.
Oh, and I guess for the summer, it's even more important, refrigerator also.
Ooh, yeah. So cold drinks and.
Yep.
Well, you know, we bought, myself and Roy bought a camper not too long ago, and I was joking with him. I said, this could be the mobile hot room, right? Where we take it out to the Water Valley Overlook and swear to the rangers that, no, we are not camping there. We just got the bathroom and the warm room pulled up, that's all.
Well, you can bring that, and I've got room by my shed, which has power where you can hook it up if you want to stay later on and not have to drive back at night late.
So we might have to take you up on that sometime. So anyway, that's a great offer, and I mean, it is lonely out at the Trace. So
it's pretty nice out at my place by comparison.
oh yeah, that's like you know, the difference between sleeping on the roadside and being in the Hilton. Yep. And safer, yeah, there is that too. That's why I do not like to. I don't recommend people go out there by themselves because, yeah, it's just a really lonesome place.
But that also leads to it being dark too.
Yeah.
I'm not here just to see the stars.
Oh. So let's see. So I don't know if, let's see, it's 8 o'clock. How fast could I go through this? The fun thing is, through the course of this year, I've done a couple of different presentations. And at Bays Mountain last year, I ended up doing 2 because somebody else boogered out. But this was actually, I think, the one that I was originally booked for. Let me see if I can do this. It's going to complain again, but what I wanted to do in just a short amount of time here was to convince you guys that we are all astronomers, which we really are. And we get that, you know, well, who's an astronomer? You know, do you have to have a degree to be an astronomer? And the answer is no, not really. And for most of the history of astronomy, you did not need, there was no such thing as an astronomy degree that was given by any institution. Astronomy, for one thing, started before there were any. I mean, everybody looked at the night sky, right? There were stars. There wasn't anything else to do. And so you know, you looked at the stars, you connected dots, you told stories. That's what you did. Charlie Warren, who's come to several of our meetings, who runs Amateur Astronomy Magazine, had a great funny story where he said somebody came up to him at NEAF, the Northeast Astronomy Forum, and was very angry. And he said, I don't like the title of your magazine. There is nothing amateur with what I do. Okay. And of course, the traditional, well, the now traditional distinction between professional and amateur is one gets paid and the other doesn't. But
there.
But you know, in the history of astronomy, it's actually been kind of rare that people got paid for doing astronomy. I mean, you have to convince somebody to pay for something that doesn't feed anybody, doesn't produce any useful thing. It's not easy to do that. And for most of the history of astronomy, nobody did that. Let's see, are you moving? Or are you just pretending to move?
I always say I'm an astronomer. Always.
Okay. That's what a lot of people think of when they think of who's an astronomer, right? And this dude has a cheap tripod.
Oh, he's inside.
He's inside. He's got a lab coat on. I mean, that's just all kinds of wrong right there. You know, it's a pretty stylized thing. If we get a little more progressive and we admit that girls can do science too, they're still wearing a lab coat. Oh my God. I actually did have a job where I did actually wear a lab coat, and that was because we were playing with chemicals, which we don't do in astronomy at all. Now here's some real people who really did astronomy. Strong suspicion that the right-hand photograph was somewhat posed in that there's a lot of light coming in right there that could have been daytime. But anyway, the gentleman on the left is Edwin Hubble. That chair that he's sitting in is still on display at Mount Wilson. And when they had a fire there, they put that chair in the vault underneath to protect it, because that's Hubble's chair. Okay. The young lady on the right is Vera Rubin at Harvard Observatory. So that's kind of fun. So have you ever been asked to the star party, are you a real astronomer? I mean, that's a question that comes up. And, you know, I usually prevaricate and say, well, I don't get paid, okay? But, yeah, I've learned a few things over the years, that's all. I did actually, once upon a time, get a degree. And, you know, what I tell people as I survived, remember finding out that astronomy is really math. Just like physics, it's math. Sorry. But for most of human history, astronomy was done with just your two eyes, the natural telescopes that we all come with. And people learned, I mean, apart from just, you know, enjoying it and again, playing connect the dots, it got used for a calendar, for navigation, you know, some better than others. I mean, the Polynesians did an amazing job of navigating around the Pacific Ocean with just the stars. So it was useful, and it was pretty, and it was always there. And that's what we started learning about the universe, was just using our eyeballs. It was our first calendar. These are some early bones that have notches cut in them. And they tend to be cut at 30-day intervals. We were using the moon for our early calendars. You know, got to keep track of time somehow.
Yeah.
So there's some tally sticks, they call them, where people would, again, keep track of time. There's another stick. We'll flip another one today. And everybody around the world drew pictures and thought about what they could look up at. This is part of the ceiling in one of the Egyptian temples. Some of those constellations are fairly familiar. Okay. Some of them are not. The thing in the middle is a hippo, and he's holding a stake at the North Star. That's where the sky rotated around, except it wasn't Polaris when this was done. It was Thuban and Draco. That's kind of fun. But some of our constellations go back a long way. And over the years, you know, we changed them around a lot. And of course, you can't see any of this, you know. This is imagination at work, right? You don't look up in the sky and nobody sees a sea goat. I don't care who you are. You're not going to see a sea goat, right? Some people drew pictures where the dark parts of the sky were, rather than connecting the stars. So that's the great emu in the southern hemisphere. That's kind of fun. All right. So one of the most familiar patterns in the winter sky, with a whole lot more stars added that we don't ever see. But to a lot of people, the belt stars, the four on either side, that looked like a person to a lot of people. There it is from one of the classic maps, where this this guy had fun because he drew it. He drew all the constellations as if you were outside the celestial dome looking in. So we're looking at Orion's back here.
I didn't realize it was this big.
Yeah.
It was out in space and
And it makes for a more family-friendly Andromeda, okay? Just saying. But, you know, you today could imagine as anything you wanted. You could do Elvis too.
That's funny.
You know, we had to explain stuff. How come the moon goes through phases? You know, and before there were geometric representations of that, it could just be that some dog ate the moon every month. And of course, the moon is white and cold and frozen. And so after a while, the dog's mouth got so cold, he had to quit. And that gave the moon a chance to grow back. And then the dog would eat it again. I mean, that just made sense to somebody anyway.
It makes sense to me. My dog will eat anything.
So eventually we had written language. And what that did is now people could write down what they saw and then people could refer to it. And we started getting records that spanned many, many years. By the time the Greeks came along, there were already, 1,000, 2,000 years worth. They knew that the pole was doing a progression. They could see that in their records. They noticed the patterns in the movement of the planets. Kind of fun. The Mayans were really big into Venus for whatever reason. It's bright, it's pretty, but they really liked the cycles that Venus went through and again, represented it quite a lot in their stuff. And of course, people took the time and the trouble to drag big stones around and set them up to use as a calendar. There were lots of lovely pictures today of sunrise at Stonehenge. So this particular stone circle is about 7,000 years old. It's in Africa. Yeah, we've been doing it. This is a little hard to see, but you see where those sticks are coming up around the horizon. This is they didn't have big stones in the Mississippi Valley, so they put up tree stumps instead. So you can go to Cahokia Mounds, not far from St. Louis, and they found the holes in the ground where these trees have been set. So it's amazing, everybody did it. And for the same reason, everybody wanted a calendar, something you could use to keep track of time, especially once you settle down and want to do agriculture, right? Here in Middle Tennessee, you can plant after April 15th, but not before. Because those darn late freezes, that last dogwood freeze is going to get you. They were, nobody kept it that fine. And why do we have 360 degrees in a circle? That is the rough number of days in the year. The natural circle is us going around the sun. And plus, 360 is a great number. It's dividable by so many different other numbers. It's just a really good, works for geometry. And of course, you can watch how the stars circle every night if you want to make a long exposure. People are so divorced from this today. And that's one of the fun things about doing outreach is you get to help reconnect them with things that people took for granted knowing. Like if you or I went out and we started out, we looked up, oh, there's the Big Dipper. And then sometime later we said, hey, it's over there now. That's about, and so we know how much time had passed. I have used this picture to break ties in Science Olympiad tournaments. I gave them a protractor and a picture, and I said, how many hours of movement is in this picture? And they could not figure it out. And I sat and talked with them afterwards, and I said, okay, look, how long does it take for the Earth to spin around once? They're really not connecting what goes on in the sky with what they kind of do know. But we are just not connected anymore to stuff going on. It's amazing. So the other thing that, it was a couple hours. Yeah. So the other thing people really like is predictability. We do not like uncertainty, and I think COVID highlighted that in a major way. It's so bad that even people who knew better in a lot of ways couldn't bring themselves to say, we don't know. Nobody likes that answer. It's a bad answer. So we wanted to be able to predict. It was not enough to observe what was happening. We wanted to predict what was going to happen. So it'd be all comfortable and good and regular and things like that. So we started building models. And obviously the whole universe rotates around us. That's easy up. So we started making our models based on that idea. And that was astronomy for 1,500 years. And, you know, there were various problems. It was hard to make the planets orbit the way they actually do with pure circles. But you'd be amazed at how much the whole idea of we want these shapes to be geometrically perfect got in people's heads, and they did not want to give that up for any reason. So Ptolemy built the first model. The Polynesians just flat memorized stars and their positions and knew by looking how much they changed every day, and used that to just navigate across the Pacific, which blew the Brits away when they got there. Because they talked to them and they realized that these people all speak the same language, more or less. They've been doing commerce from island to island, and the Brits had not yet really solved the idea of how do you figure your longitude. So they were just blown away that the Polynesians were obviously doing it. And back a ways, they rebuilt one of the boats, and one of the older guys that still knew most of it taught a younger guy, here's how you do that. And they went from Hawaii to Tahiti using only the stars. I always thought it was pretty cool when the Martian landers land, when they go in for that entry and descent, that exciting couple minutes of going in, the last thing they do before they hit the atmosphere is take a last fix from the stars. That's how we know where we are. I tell people you should never be lost on your own planet. That's just bad. So again, who was a professional at this time? The only people who had money were kings. So what you wanted to do is to invent a job that would be worth the king paying you money for. Well, that often meant A, doing the predicting, which meant that you might want to be a little good at math. And math was coming along. In the Middle Ages, when Europe had kind of just, you know, shrunk down to just, you know, the monks knew some stuff, but nobody else did. The Islamic world actually picked up the baton at that point, and they got into math in a big way. And in particular, this dude, let's see if his picture will come up here. He wrote a book, and part of the name, and again, they were doing star charts too. And so that's why so many of our stars have Arabic names, because they wrote it down. And once things are written down, people start using it, next thing you know. Anyway, he wrote a book, part of which of the name was algebra. And it had to do with solving equations. So today, all the school kids get to learn algebra. That's so much fun. Yep. And that was what the translation of the title was, the compendious book on calculation by completion and balancing. Algebra, yeah. So anyway, there's the name. Yep, so we just shortened it. Good fun. A lot of time passed. The church was a center of learning. At least people were literate. They could read, they could copy. And the calendar was getting into trouble because the Julian calendar, you know, one thing you can do when you're the emperor of the known world is you can make things happen. And Julius Caesar said the calendar will be like this many months, this many days, here we go. Well, it was getting out of step with the natural year. This was bad, or at least it bothered people. So Pope Gregory convened a panel of experts. He wasn't Julius Caesar. He wasn't going to dictate it himself, but he convened a panel of experts, and they thought about it and thought about it, and they finally came up with some rules for how the calendar should go to keep everything in step, to keep Easter where it belonged, to keep Christmas where it belonged. And the Pope said, all right, that works. So now we have rules for how many leap years we have and when they come. So it became known as the Gregorian calendar. Well, by the time this was happening, some splits had already gone on in the church. England in particular was like, yeah, the Pope, we don't listen to anything the Pope says. So they kept on with the other calendar for a while. And by the time commerce basically forced them into using the common calendar, they wouldn't call it the Gregorian calendar, they called it the improved calendar. And people rioted because there was a 2-week difference at that point between them. And they felt like 2 weeks of their life had been stolen. Okay, so there's no professional astronomers really involved here. They're just people trying to do simple things, you know, understand how the universe works. The last country to adopt the calendar for civil use, by the way, was Greece in 1923. Whew. Some change takes a while. Pope Gregory the 8th, 13th, sorry, XIII. Looking at mine. Change started to happen faster, mostly because of this here, the printing press. Now, not only could you keep records and let other people look at them, but you could distribute your ideas and your stuff and get real-time, more or less feedback from your peers. That was huge. There was also a rising mercantile class that had a little bit of money and was willing to pay for some stuff. All right, who's this dude? This is a young picture of him, but still, this is a picture that a lot of us know him by. Copernicus. Okay, what do you know about Copernicus? What did he do? He did that. He put the sun. When did he do that? When did he publish the book that put the sun in the middle? It was literally, yeah, I think they said, here's your book, and he was dying. He was on his deathbed. What did he do for the rest of his life? He actually lived a really interesting life. I'm not going to go through it here, but go look him up. Because this guy was like a polymath. He did a lot of different things. He was a smart dude. He was highly educated. He actually, well, this was before Galileo, right? He derived a quantity theory of money, or how prices go with the money supply. That was in 1517. He was giving advice to governments about how to manage their money so that you didn't get rampant inflation and other bad things. 500 years ago. Anyway, really interesting guy, really smart guy. But along the way, yeah, he also did this thing about, because in some ways it simplified the math. You could make things move on more circular orbits without having a lot of little goofy things go around.
He used the data from a guy that built this machine that measured the movements of the stars. That's how he was able to develop the equations. Wasn't for that data, he couldn't have done it.
Yep. So this guy, this is the old picture. I think this is old picture. This guy we know a little better, right? Considered the priesthood. His dad wanted to become a doctor, so he was at the university studying medicine, when by a happy accident, he took an astronomy class. He said, that's cool stuff. He also studied fine art and taught as an art instructor in Florence. All the stuff we have no idea that Galileo was up to besides aggravating the Pope. He does kind of, yeah. You know, eventually along the way, he got a job teaching mathematics in Pisa. He got a sponsor at some point, sold telescopes. When he found out about, he heard about what a telescope was. And he looked at what, he might have even gotten his hands on one, but he said, I can improve this. And he did. And then he sold them to Venetian merchants. He didn't tell them he didn't invent it. They just sort of assumed that. They were a little peeved when they found out actually somebody else had already come up with the idea, but he made some money doing that. Turned out there was monetary value in being able to know that your ship was coming in right now. And so they were using them to see whose flags were flying coming into Venice. Again, astronomy didn't pay anybody's bill. You were tutoring people's kids, you were giving advice, you were finding some way to make yourself useful. And a fair number of people made their living doing astrology. Because even, I don't know how many people actually believe, quote unquote believe, but of course the stars must have some influence. They're in the heavens, we're down here, they must have some influence on us. And rulers especially really like to know, when's a good time for me to start this battle? Oh, well, the stars will align on this date. And of course, eclipses were bad omens all the time. Comets were generally bad omens. So the nasty thing was it took a long time for people to be really accurate about predicting some of that. But yeah, he eventually got in trouble for being rather insistent, and not just for the idea that he had, but if you ever read the book, the dialogue and all that, he makes fun of the Pope. I mean, he really does. And the Pope didn't like that. So he's a bit of a wiseacre. He also published his stuff in Italian. Then this guy, Tycho Brahe, is the one. Yeah, this is a nice painting. So yeah, he got into trouble. His family thought he'd go into politics and law, but he got appointed at a cathedral, which is how he got paid while doing astronomy. He got the king to agree that, hey, I'm going to build a world-class, I'm going to have the biggest observatory. That appeals to a lot of people, right? And we're going to have the best stuff. And so he bought that. He was really, yep. He was really the last purely naked eye observer. But he was darn good at it. Yeah, and his data was so good that once a young whippersnapper got a hold of it and said, Mercury's orbit might be many things, or Mars's orbit might be many things, but it's not a circle. It's definitely not a circle. So Kepler stole, when he had to, the data from Tycho, did a lot better job of data reduction, tried every which kind of orbit, because he was just, Edison did the same approach. He just tried all these different filaments. Didn't matter what it was made of, just tried till he found out what worked. Kepler tried a whole bunch of different orbits. Whereas if he had waited just a short, 7,500 years, Isaac Newton would have said, well, duh, they're ellipses. But Kepler actually had to defend his mother from charges of witchcraft. These were not easy times. You were not sitting in your ivory tower getting paid to do astronomy. Born the year Galileo died, Isaac Newton. He was pretty messed up. I mean, I think he is the archetype kind of the unsocialized nerd, right? He didn't get along with anybody. And he wasn't even a good lecturer. I mean, he had to lecture because that was part of his job, but people did not come to his lectures. Rude. But it was a secure position. He had to be ordained. You had to be an ordained person in the church to teach. But he got some kind of funky dispensation from the king because he had some off-the-wall religious beliefs, did not want to swear to the whole idea of the Trinity. So, and he was really smart, so okay, we'll let you slide. Everybody knew he was kind of a jerk, but everybody also knew that he was fantastically intelligent. There was a point in time when somebody had a math problem and they just shopped it around and mailed it to everybody they could think of. Hey, I got this problem. The answer came back unsigned, and they knew it was Newton. And of course, the story was that the next guy, and he actually at least got paid for being an instructor, a teacher, a professor. Edmund Halley, who got interested in astronomy when he saw a comet as a young person, had a comet go by the year he was married. So maybe that was a good omen. Went to Newton and said, hey, I'm working on comets. What do you're a smart guy, what do you know? He goes, their orbits are ellipses. And I have the equations like right here. I go, what? Well, you should write this up. Well, I had it written up and he couldn't find his stuff. Hallie said, write it up again. We're going to publish it. He went to the Royal Astronomical Society and go, we got to publish this stuff. The Royal Astronomical Society had published some book about, I think it was seashells or something the year before and lost money on it. So they said, we don't have money to do this. Hallie said, this is important stuff, and published the Principia with his own money. Probably the most important book in the history of physics. It not only did, orbits and gravity, it did optics. There's all kinds of stuff in there. It's an amazing work. So yeah. And apparently Hallie liked to party too. There's some great stories about what he did as astronomer royal. This is a picture of the French Royal Society at the time. Every country had their own, oh, we are the science people in this country. We have a club, we get together, we smoke cigars and drink wine and talk about science. And that's kind of how science was done. None of these guys is wearing a lab coat, right? And they are all guys. This was not something women did. Marie Curie was excluded by this group. They would not even admit a double Nobel Prize winner. The British Royal Society did bend enough to name Carolyn Herschel as an honorary member. So most of these guys were rich, came from rich families that could afford to educate them, that in many cases, like Herschel, they could just have enough money to do their thing. Right? Lest you think America was really democratic, at the founding of the country, your class rank in Harvard was determined by how much land your dad owned.
Huh.
So when did this change? When did science go from a bunch of rich guys who were accidentally interested in science one way or another to anything else? About the mid-1800s, a new technology got introduced that was going to revolutionize astronomy, and that was photography. In 1840, John William Draper used his own improvements in Daguerre's early, how he took pictures like during the Civil War, those old, yeah, thank you. I can't say that word. And this is one of the earliest surviving pictures of the moon. It's not a good picture, but it's a picture. This guy was educated as a chemist and a physician. Doctors make money. They can buy a big telescope, right? And this is actually, there's a fair number of astronomers that are kind of like this. So here he is with his telescope in his roll-off roof or whatever observatory in his backyard. His son, Henry Draper, was also a doctor and amateur astronomer. And he got good enough at photography that he was the one who taught people how to take pictures for the transit of Venus when it went in America and everybody came here. So, yeah, it's amazing. He had an 11-inch Clark Brothers refractor, which those are like the amazing telescopes of their day. I'm going to scooch that over a bit. In 1880, he photographed the Orion Nebula. Right? What else would you start out with? He also started doing stellar spectra. And many, many stars, one of the names they have is their HD, their Henry Draper catalog number. His work actually got continued after he died by Edward Pickering at Harvard, and it was funded by his widow. That's kind of fun. And we know this next dude because he's our namesake. Whoop. Back, I say. There we go. All right. E.E. Barnard, born and raised in Nashville. became a photographer's assistant at the age of 9. Right? Dad died, he had to work. Oh boy. But he developed an interest in astronomy, bought a telescope, was a darn good visual observer, found comets. Comets bought the house that he lived in with his wife when they got married, which sadly isn't still around. It's on the Vanderbilt campus, though. He is the only person ever given an honorary degree in astronomy by Vanderbilt. He later worked at Lick and Yerkes Observatory, discovered the next moon, Amalthea. And this is not to say that the rich were not still doing or funding science. The government still wasn't really involved. They didn't have the kind of money it took. Governments just did war and stuff like that. They weren't funding science. So nobody did more for astronomy and getting rich people to part with their money than George Ellery Hale. Okay. He built Yerkes. He'd say, you got to build this big telescope and we'll name it after you. And that worked, right? Mount Wilson, Mount Palomar, and the Hale Solar Observatory. I mean, this guy was good. He also actually was a pretty good scientist in his own right, but to part rich people from their money, he was great. So he actually built a lot of cool stuff for us. And of course, some folks just buy their way in. And this is Percival Lowell, rich dude from a rich family in Boston, who got interested in Mars. So he built the telescope that he's sitting there looking through the eyepiece, which is how people think we do astronomy, right? That's totally what they think, is that that's what you do. And saw canals and concocted a fun fable about how the Martians were drying up, and so they were building all these canals so they could move the water around and not all die. E.E. Barnard looked at Mars and said, this guy is literally looking at the back of his eyeballs. There is nothing there to see. But he built Lowell Observatory, which then later became famous because actual astronomers did take the place over, actual people who wanted to do actual astronomy. And they hired this kid who had not yet gone to college, right? Well, he built his own telescope. Pretty fun. Was a hardworking kid, impressed the staff at Lowell, so they hired him to do a couple of different jobs, which included chopping wood to stay warm in the winter, and other things. But in particular, he was responsible for taking photographs with one of the telescopes and then comparing them. They'd be like 3 months apart or so exposures. And he sat there and A, patiently took all these plates. B, blinked them manually. And he was just stupidly good and patient. I mean, that would drive me nuts. I think it would drive most people nuts. But they said when he walked into the office and said, hey, I think I found your planet, they took him real seriously because he, by that time, knew the sky. He's the one who told, Hubble, he said, you know what? Galaxies are not evenly distributed. And what? He goes, no, I've looked at the entire sky. I can tell you they're not evenly distributed. On all sorts of things, because he was, again, stupidly good and patient. So was he a professional? Well, he did get paid. He did go to college after this, after he discovered Pluto. Imagine being in his classroom and being told, hey, that guy sitting next to you discovered a planet. So that's kind of fun. Of course, the amateurs then got outclassed by really big stuff. So we kind of got into the age of really huge observatories and cameras and stuff that most people could not afford. So that's really when the schism started opening up between these are the pros and the amateurs. You know, they've just got these puny little telescopes and they can go out and look at stuff. And it was okay. I mean, the amateurs were still having fun, right? Stellafane turned 100 years old this year where people go up and make their own telescopes. So the amateurs been doing stuff. They just were not considered professional. And funding starting in about 1900 was shifting to the government. And of course, when Sputnik happened, just all heck broke loose, right? So that got a ton of money and all sorts of things. But post World War II, an economic boom started. Oh yeah, there's a homemade guy. That's a nice effort too. I'd be proud of that. Also, this
Really?
is happening, right? How to make your own telescope. People started having a little more spendable money. And so Celestron in particular became known for their orange tube. Late 70s, early 80s. There's Spock selling one. When I explore the real universe, I like that.
Mm.
Some of their ads were pretty funny. I don't know what that young lady is going to do with that telescope on the beach, but that's certainly fun. And this guy, let me get my window here out of the way. Meade was taking a really, like we can all be scientists type of approach. He's got a lab coat on.
That proves he's professional.
That's right. Now, you know, things keep changing fast. And so this is one of the first, that is a single line by 1024 pixels since he did that. Before this, it was all film. And it was even film, I mean, the professionals just put their emulsion on glass. One of my work study jobs was cleaning emulsion off plates they didn't need anymore so they could recycle the glass plates and put new emulsion on them. This changed everything again, because now you could do just, there was just so much more you could do with the electronic data than you can with the photograph. And we've gone from that, to this, huge detectors in just a really short period of time. So that's really cool. You know,
Yes.
none of our stuff in space would be possible without this. You can't send, I would say, film and do anything in space, except that the very earliest attempts were exactly that. The Russians got back the first pictures of the far side of the moon, and the way they did that was they had a camera with film. The film got developed on the way back. They had a little developing tank on the spacecraft, and then they scanned it with like a black and white TV type of thing. And then they could digitally send that back. But they couldn't send it until it got within such distance of Earth. So it was an amazing, I mean, that's stone knives and bearskin's way of doing it, but they got it done. But this stuff, oh man, this is really nice. And what happened? Well, we've made more and more and more of them, and the prices started going down until people realized that you could put this cute little Phillips toucan into your telescope eyepiece tube and get a pretty good picture back. I mean, that's not bad. And from that, it didn't take long for people to really start doing stuff. This is a picture from my freshman astronomy textbook, taken with probably the Palomar on film. That's what they said. This is what Jupiter looks like. Okay, that's the professional. That's pretty good right there. And I'm sure this is a cut down as far as the resolution here on the screen. This is 2007. Whoa, things have gotten good. The first time I saw one of these, I said, what spacecraft did he use to do that? I mean, those are insanely good pictures in 2021, taken from Crisco's balcony in the Philippines with his telescope.
That's amazing.
All of a sudden, the distance between what the pros could do and what the amateurs could do came back together again. You could do serious science being able to do this kind of photography. And he does have a hotline basically to the Hubble people. If he sees something, he can call them up and say, I saw that, and they take him totally seriously and will take some time to go and look. It's just unbelievable. The other thing that people do now as quote unquote amateurs, they're not getting paid, is every night that's clear that he can see Jupiter, he's taking a picture. So now he's got years of Jupiter pictures. You can start to really, the professionals can't do that. You just can't dedicate a pro telescope that everybody wants to use to doing a project like that. But quote unquote, amateurs can. So that time sequence is important. And what's happened? Oh, well, you know, back in the day, things used to hit planets, but it's all cleaned up now, it never happens. Until we saw it happen. Oh, well, that was a super long shot that we saw that until it happened again. So now we're learning a whole lot more about what's actually going on in the solar system because people can dedicate these amateur scopes to doing real science. We literally don't have enough money to pay everybody to do this stuff. So there on the left are Crisco's and there's the Hubble. That's not bad work at all.
Oh.
So that's a lot of fun that we're seeing stuff like that. And it's a chance for people to do science that maybe, you know, never really thought about it before. Oh, not responding, okay. And this, by the way, is fun because I think this is like one of the, sometimes the single frames aren't that good. It's when you take a lot of frames real fast and you can use software. So computers have gotten cheap, the detectors got cheap. There's just so much cool stuff now that you can do. It's just amazing. Okay. Oh, that's probably rotation. You can even search for supernovae. This is one that I wished I had paid attention to my pictures when I took them. Because if I had bothered to compare one I'd done earlier with the one I took on the 20th in 2014, I would have said, wow, I've got a supernova there. Funny thing is, fellow BSAS member Ken Kramer was down in Murfreesboro. He does like a little live thing called At the Eyepiece. He was doing a live show and they were looking at MH that same night. Never thinking that they're looking at a supernova. 2 nights later, there was a star party somewhere in England. And somebody said, you know, that bright spot's not there on older pictures. I think we're seeing a supernova. And they got the credit. And the next day when I walked into the planetarium, Drew says, hey, did you hear about the supernova in M82? And I probably said some French, dug up my pictures from, because I had just taken them for a lark a couple nights earlier and said, well, that'll teach me to never go a night and not at least take a frame and look at it. And that's not even, I mean, that's not super high quality stuff there. That's just my camera on the back of a, you know, decent refractor. The one that just happened in M101, Japanese gentle person who that's his thing is finding supernovae. And he's got a whole pile to his credit. So he's beaten the automated telescopes at finding these things, which means he's probably got all the bright galaxies in his head. He knows exactly what they look like. This is an amazing thing that people do. You know, occultation timing does not sound very sexy. You time exactly when the star winks out when the thing goes by it and when it winks back on. But when you spread a bunch of observers across the path of that occultation, everybody gets a little bit different timing. And you can use that, you just put up that plot there. Here's the path. Here's when it winked in and out for each of these people. And now you can not only tell that that's a double asteroid, but you can see their shapes. And that's a really accurate size. You can't do that visually. So these people do fun stuff with a pretty, you know, in some ways basic, but they have a really, you know, you gotta have an accurate clock. We have those now. That's another thing. You're not carrying around some pendulum thing that you have to calibrate. Get GPS. We can do amazing things with simple equipment now. And the AAVSO, our favorite people who look at, and these are almost all amateurs. They're looking every night they can. Some of them have favorite stars. How bright is it? And making plots over time. And we're learning a whole lot about various variable stars this way. And again, this isn't, you can't get professionals to do this. There isn't enough money in the world to fund people to do this. So these are people that are doing science. And so if you ever have some time, you want to do something fun, anybody can join. Of course, Betelgeuse was making the news the other year because its brightness had changed in an unusual way. So it's just amazing the work that people are doing, and it's just normal people. Okay, are we normal people? You know, you can ask that. I don't remember if this actually played. I thought this was us. It was at one time. There was a movie and it would run and there'd be this little, there's you do it. Dude saw that with his video camera. Amateurs had been seeing that for a long time. They said, hey, NASA, I keep seeing these little light flashes on the moon, like something's hitting it. And NASA said, you guys are imagining things. You're as bad as Lowell, go away. Well, now we have it on film, so there you go, or video anyway. So yeah, if you're going to talk about having a moon base, you might want to know how often stuff hits the moon. Might be cool to find. So now there's the ALPO, you can go Lunar Meteoritic Impact Search. Fun. So you can look through some stuff that people don't have time to look through and see if you can find an impact. There's also automated software now that will take, because nobody's got time to sit there and watch for that. It will sit and watch for it for you and look through your stuff. Unbelievable junk. So you can do exoplanets. There's data being produced that's so voluminous that nobody's got time to go through it. You can do an exoplanet. And you know what it looks like. Big light dip. Never looks like that in real life. And you can verify this stuff, which some people do for fun. This guy does it with this telescope. There's his 8-inch telescope doing science. This guy decided to do the classic experiment that was done during a solar eclipse to try to verify Einstein's things, where they were watching stars really close to the sun and how they shifted positions. He's an amateur. He got the best gear he could, practiced for a long time. And he made the observations in 2017. He was very fortunate, had lovely skies, you know. And his observations are like right at the limit of what you can do from the ground. It can't be done better than this guy did it. And he actually has an uncertainty of plus or minus 3%, which is a whole lot better than Eddington, which was actually pretty wide. They didn't have that good a data. So yeah, nothing amateur about his work. So he could pick out stars, and again, the software just is ridiculous. So he has a paper in Physics Today Gravitational starlight deflection measurements. And just to end up, you know, the sad thing is that a lot of the sky is being stolen from us for no reason at all. Every bit of light that goes up is wasted light. It's not doing anybody any good. It's not lighting up any streets, any buildings, any signs. It's just going up. It's wasted. Literally, we're burning money. And since it just feels like such an easy problem to fix. You do get a lot of pushback. I gave a talk at a cute little retirement community. It's right out here, they're nice folks. But you know, a lot of them have moved from other places and they're really into, but security. Well, first of all, you're in Crossville, really? But okay. But security is lighting up what you want to see, nothing to do with the sky. Keep it pointed down. Migrating birds do not need any of the light we're sending up. It's a severe problem for them when they migrate. They're trying to navigate using the sky. They do not expect to see light under them. So we're just being lazy. Yeah, okay. Well, that means I gotta end it, right? Oh, this is what happens when you come in and you don't. Okay, who can plug up a computer really fast here? Do we have a plug I can use? Probably not. Oh, is that? Whoa, did we make it? Yay. So anyway, consider becoming a part of the International Dark Sky Association, which is now calling themselves just darkskies.org, and work to maybe get some lights pointed back down, or at least to kind of freeze it where it is. Because we'd like everybody to get that view that originally inspired people to look up at the night sky. Think about the universe, think about what we know. And again, we can all be astronomers and look at those beautiful points of light. So go forth and be an astronomer. We can own it. So that's what I got. And stop sharing because nobody wants to look at that. All right. Stop the sharing. All right. Does anybody else have anything they would like to talk about, add, subtract?
It was a great presentation.
Thank
I had a
you.
lot of fun with it. Like I said, honestly, go look up some of those folks back in the day. They did a lot of different jobs to try to support themselves. And, you know, there's some side stories to it, fun things, times they got into trouble or things they did, but it's all good fun. So anyway, thanks for coming tonight. And we'll see you all. Hopefully we'll see a bunch of you out at Bowie, or if you want to stop by the air park. But I'll put out an email on that so that we can get some people out. I think we can reasonably do both. They're not. Neither of them are usually super highly attended. But you know, maybe we'll get lucky and get a good night. Who knows? Bring your dew heater though. So anyway, we'll sign off on the Zoom meeting. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you next month.
Bye-bye.